Okay, KKelly, old friend of Ted. KKelly.
Thank you, Richard.
You understood that, didn't you?
Actually, I buy it. I think this vision is certainly what appears to be happening, and I think combined with what Bill Joy was speaking about, it's not too far off from where we're going. I like to think of it in terms of zillionics. Zillionics is the state where there's zillions of things. You've got zillions of little bots, zillions of websites, zillions of appliances with some little sliver of computer in them, zillions of destinations, zillions of terabytes, zillions of bytes, zillions of bauds. And so it's a very peculiar world, and I think that the curve that Brand made, which was this exponential thing going up, is certainly the way that things are going to go. We're headed up in that direction. But I don't think it's the only thing that's going to go in that direction. I think there's other things happening, and that's really what I want to talk about. It's a world where we can see, if things continue in this direction, it's a world of prosperity, a world that machines are going to continue to do more of the work that we used to do and don't really want to do. So we have zillions of copies of things. It's a world where copies become very cheap. So what that suggests to me is that as copies become cheap, that which becomes most valuable is that which cannot be copied. So you have to ask yourself, what can't be copied? And like several other people have mentioned, Brand mentioned very clearly, I think that one of the things that can't be copied, one of the things that technology does not change right now is human attention, the 24 hours that we have. So human attention becomes the scarcity in which this world of abundance, this future of abundance, becomes part of. So what does the near-term future of abundance, the economy of abundance, what does it look like? One of the things that I think you get is, let's see if I can get this technology, this is a historical curve of the Dow Jones index on a log curve, and you can see it kind of goes straight and actually is accelerating, as Ray mentioned, more recently, because the log curve is just an acceleration curve, but now we have the acceleration on the acceleration, and if we just continue to extrapolate without any changes at all, we get to the Dow at 150,000 in another 20 years. What would that be like? A world where the Dow's at 150,000 and there are already, at this moment, there is one new millionaire made in America every minute. When that begins to accelerate, what does that do? Well, I think one of the things that it does is it sends us in the other direction. This is a quote that I stole. It says that the two greatest upcoming markets are consumer technology and the escape from consumer technology. This is John Naisbitt's high tech, high touch. For every single step that we take towards the high tech, I think for some reason we also take a step in the opposite direction. So while Ray's world is going to come true, the world of all these bots, machines being as intelligent as we are, collectively the machines being even smarter than we are, at the same time that is all happening, I think we're going in a different direction. And I think the direction that we're going in is Burning Man. This takes place out in the desert of Nevada, Labor Day weekends. And it's growing exponentially like other kinds of things, but it's a very curious place. It's sort of a Woodstock gone crazy. It's sort of a spectacular extravaganza. There's lots of strange things there. And if it was only kind of a carnival of the next century, it wouldn't be so interesting. But I actually think there's something happening there that is very important, because it is playing into the fact that while all this other stuff will be happening, we also have this other desire to do these kinds of things that Burning Man is about. And I wanted to talk a few minutes about what those kinds of things are. I don't really know why this is true. I don't know really why we need to take a step away from technology as we take a step towards it. It may have to do with the fact that even though our brain's a computer, it's embedded in about 50 kilos of meat. But something drives us in the other direction. Line of sight. That's Burning Man a couple of years ago, before it got really big. The man hasn't grown very much. It's the same man that's burnt every year. And why do they burn it every year? Well, the saying is that if they didn't burn it this year, they couldn't burn it next year. That's the definition of a ritual. This is part of what this is about. It's about having a ritual. It's a 40-foot wooden sculpture that's identical each year. It's covered in neon, stuffed with fireworks, and set on fire. There's an entire city built around it. Those are two people in costumes, a fiber optic costume. They change color as they're walking by. The important part about this is that all the art here is made by all the participants. They actually go up several weeks, at this point almost a week beforehand, some people several weeks, some people a month beforehand, to start to build this city. And the motto is no spectator, all participants. Here is a camera obscura built in the middle of the desert. Tremendous amount of work. Go up inside this thing and you can see the natural camera as there's a little scope at the top that goes around. That was there for about a week and then it was gone. This is the main avenue of one of the main camp. Bicycles are the preferred way to travel because it's a big blank desert out in the Black Rock alkaline flats. Hundreds of square miles of absolutely nothing. So it's like cyberspace. Exactly the same thing. In fact, interesting, what we see about it is actually has an internet cycle because an entire city is built every year, taken away. Everything that's learned about it is remembered and they have a chance to rebuild it version the next following year. So it's urban planning on an accelerated internet scale. Local traffic. This is a very tribal sense, and this is part of what people are coming for the community. I have no idea what this was. This was a rave scene. They built this antenna to the gods. Again, all the art is generated on site by people, and most of it, importantly, is anonymous. This is a photograph of the city about 4 years ago. This is a city last year. This is a city that's made, assembled, and taken down completely so absolutely nothing remains a week later. Why are they doing this? Because for every step we take towards technology, we take a step away from it. This is a very ritualistic, tribal, art-bound, and something that's most important, I think, it's pre-commercial. This is part of the Burning Man mandala in the middle. They burn, soaked with kerosene if they burn. Here's a guy making a great big Tesla coil and routing a lightning to his head. Do not try this at home. This bus makes Ken Kesey's bus look like it was in plaid. Topless women on bikes doing the great big circle in the afternoon. It's a very safe environment. I bring my 2 daughters every year. They started going when they were 4 and 6, and they think that this is a typical American holiday. It's the only one they've ever been on. We drove into a parking lot of Candlestick Park to go to a baseball game. It was a great big flat black area with lots of cars, and they said, "Oh, Burning Man." I said, no, this is a baseball game. Neon art. Again, the art is all unsigned. It's anonymous. It's throughout. If you happen to see it, fine. They put on a great big opera. They spend months and years preparing for the opera. Many, many people involved. If you happen to walk by and see it, it's great. If you don't, you don't see it. This entire city of art being made for those who are there. When the alkaline mud gets wet, it gets very slippery. So this is ride the hump game. Everybody gets muddy, and you slip and slide over to the chain of backsides, and you get in line, and they go over you. This is a jet. But what I'm trying to suggest here is that here is a world in which everybody makes art. All the camps have something that they bring. It's some of the best art in America happening right now. Very little of it is signed, although the people actually do exist, and you can find out who made what if you wanted to. You go out in the middle of the desert, and there's something happening. It happens all the time, and it's a tremendously invigorating and, I think, binding event. It's crazy. It's the future. Burning Man's made out of tin cans, space stations. Nobody knows who's going to make what. They show up and they make it, and it's for the enjoyment of everybody who's there. They take it down when they're all done. This is the man burning at the end of the day. It's a great big circle. He's stuffed with explosives. People dance around. There's an entire ritual that is repeated every year. It gets more and more elaborate. And the man burns. And if the man doesn't burn this year, he won't be able to be burnt next year. Costume stuff, people just go crazy. This is some of the sculpture. Why? Because you can do it. If you want to be painted, they have body painting stations. You just come by and they'll paint you up. And I think the key thing that's driving this is the fact that one of the great rules that they began with was that there would be no vending. No advertising, no vending. So what happens is you have people giving out free snow cones. You can't buy it, you can't give them money, they won't take it. Free waffles, free meals. And what that does is that it makes a zone where there's no commerce, which is actually, I think, incredibly important. Because it's liberated all this. It's made people free to do these things because there's no money being involved, just attention. And I actually think that this is a trend of something, that we'll see more and more of these zones where there is no commerce allowed. Because as we see more and more commerce entering into more and more of our lives, more and more of the things we do being monetized, I think we're actually going to make these other areas where we won't have commerce at all. And Burning Man, I think part of its vitality and its variety and its creativity has come from the fact that all the city's being run entirely without money inside it. They have rangers, they have police, and every year there's more and more rules. But it's grown organically, and it's grown in this kind of accelerated repetition of iteration and improvement. This is a bone arch made entirely of desert bones, and some of the other kind of art that's happening around. More and more stuff. So what I think we get out of this is this idea that while all these other things are happening, while there are more robots and more technology in our lives, I think at the same time we're going away from that into this new area. And the question that it brings up to my mind, the question that I want to end with, is that what this is sort of answering is a question that I think we're going to see in the headlines in the coming years, and probably in the next 100 years, of Ray's revolution. And this is a question that USA Today will be running every week. And the question is, what are humans for? What are humans for? Because as this technology does a lot of the things that we used to do, this is the question of the century. As bioengineering comes in and we can modify ourselves, as technology does more and more of it, I think the question we're going to ask is, what are humans good for? And I think this is one of the answers that we're coming up with. Clock, more art. This is a crazy, 30-foot plastic sculpture. More art, more nudity. The Burning Man burning. Great art in the desert, made little bubbles and sound. Completely anonymous. I think that's what we're doing and where we're going. So, thank you.